The bell above the store's door chimed as Maya stepped inside, the sound sharp against the stillness of the cramped shop. She wore a calm smile, her brown eyes scanning the neat rows of shelves. The shopkeeper, a wiry man in his late 50s with a weathered face, looked up from behind the counter. His gaze shifted the moment he saw her, the warmth fading into a cold frown. "We're closed," he said, though the sign outside read open. Maya glanced at it, then back at him. "It says you're open," she replied evenly. The man crossed his arms. "Not for you." The words landed heavy, like stones dropped into a still pond. Maya felt the sting, though her face betrayed nothing. She took a step forward, the soft creak of the wooden floor echoing in the air. The shopkeeper's eyes narrowed. "I don't want trouble," he muttered, though his tone dripped with disdain. "Then you should serve your customers," Maya said quietly, her voice steady yet edged with steel. Outside, the late afternoon sun painted the windows gold, but inside, the air felt colder. Maya's voice held a steady weight as she said, "I'm just here to buy some groceries." The shopkeeper's lips curled into a thin smile that never reached his eyes. "Then try somewhere else," he muttered. The words echoed in the small store, bouncing off the shelves like an unwelcome breeze. Maya's gaze swept the room, taking in every detail. The jars lined up neatly, the baskets of apples stacked to perfection, the faded photographs on the wall of smiling customers who all had one thing in common. She realized she wasn't just dealing with one man's prejudice, she was standing inside a building soaked in it. Outside, the world carried on, but inside, time felt thick, as if the air itself resisted change. The fluorescent lights hummed above, a cold reminder that this space was his domain. For now. The shopkeeper's eyes darted toward the door, as though willing her to leave. Maya stayed rooted in place, her chin lifting slightly. "You think I'm going to walk out just because you tell me to?" she asked softly. His face hardened. "That's exactly what's going to happen." The two stood like statues, their stillness charged with unspoken challenge. Maya's heartbeat was steady, not from lack of fear, but from years of practice in facing it. She let the silence stretch, knowing it would make him uncomfortable. The old clock on the wall ticked in uneven beats, like it too was holding its breath. The smell of fresh bread from a nearby shelf wrapped around her senses, grounding her. "I'm not leaving," she finally said. The words were not loud, but they landed with the weight of stone. The shopkeeper's jaw tightened. "You people always want to make things difficult," he said under his breath, but loud enough for it to slice through the air. Maya's eyes did not flinch. Instead, she studied him, taking in the lines of bitterness etched into his features. "What exactly do you mean by you people?" she asked, her voice low but razor sharp. He looked away, pretending to rearrange a stack of receipts, yet his shoulders were rigid. The tension was thick enough to taste, metallic and sharp. Outside, a breeze rattled the door, the sound almost like a warning. Maya's hands remained at her sides, relaxed but ready. Maya let the moment breathe before speaking again. "You have no idea who you're talking to," she said evenly. The shopkeeper scoffed. "Doesn't matter, you're not wanted here." His voice dripped with finality, as if he believed the conversation was already over. Maya's lips curved slightly, not in amusement, but in the knowledge of something he didn't yet understand. "We'll see about that," she replied. Outside, the golden light deepened toward evening, casting long shadows across the store floor. A distant car horn blared, reminding them both the world kept turning, no matter what battles played out in this small corner of it. The silence in the store stretched, and Maya could feel the weight of the shopkeeper's hostility pressing against her skin like damp air before a storm. She knew this wasn't new. This was learned behavior, the kind passed down like an old poisonous recipe. "I've lived here longer than you think," she said softly, her voice threading through the stale air. He laughed, a short, bitter sound. "People like you don't last here." His words carried the smugness of someone who believed the rules would never change. Maya's eyes scanned the framed photos behind him. Generations of smiling white families in front of the store, the same name above the door for decades. Outside, a truck rumbled by, shaking the window panes, but inside, the two remained locked in place. She took a slow breath, centering herself. She had not come here to leave defeated. She had come here for a reason. Maya's mind flashed back to her childhood, the first time she'd entered this store with her mother. She remembered the way her mother's hand had tightened around hers when the same man, younger then, but with the same sharp eyes, had refused to let them buy milk. She had been too young to understand, but she'd felt the sting of shame, the hot flush in her cheeks as they walked out empty-handed. Now, standing here decades later, she realized nothing had changed. Only this time, she wasn't going to walk away. "I've been in this store before," she said, letting the words hang. The shopkeeper tilted his head slightly, as if trying to place her face in his memory, but his eyes quickly hardened again. "Doesn't matter, you're still not welcome." The fluorescent lights above buzzed faintly, like an insect trapped against glass. The shopkeeper shifted uncomfortably, the wood of the counter creaking under his palms. He was not used to people holding their ground here. "Look," he said, feigning a sigh, "I don't make the rules, I just run the store." Maya's eyebrow lifted slightly. "No, you are the rules, and you're afraid of losing control." His nostrils flared at her words. Outside, the sunlight was beginning to fade, the long shadows of early evening stretching across the floor. A slow rhythm of passing cars hummed in the distance, but the store felt like an island cut off from time. Maya didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Every word she spoke was steady, precise, and deliberate, aimed directly at the man's fragile sense of authority. She had no intention of leaving him comfortable in his prejudice. The hum of the store's old refrigerator filled the pause between them. Maya let it stretch before she spoke again. "Do you even hear yourself?" she asked, her voice low but unwavering. The shopkeeper avoided her gaze, fiddling with the corner of a receipt. "I don't have to explain myself to you," he said finally. Maya took a single step closer, closing the distance by just enough to unsettle him. "One day soon," she said, "you'll have to answer for the way you treat people." Her words cut through the air like a blade, sharp and precise. For the first time, a flicker of something passed through his eyes, not fear, but the recognition that she might be right. Outside, the breeze picked up, rattling the glass pane of the door. The clock on the wall ticked toward 6, its hands moving with the slow patience of inevitability. Maya knew she was getting closer to the moment she had planned for. "This store has been here a long time," she said, glancing briefly at the shelves. "And things are about to change." The shopkeeper's brow furrowed at her tone. "Not if I have anything to say about it." She smiled faintly. "That's the thing, you don't." The finality in her words made the air feel heavier. The sun's last rays spilled across the counter, turning the dust in the air into gold. Somewhere in the distance a dog barked, the sound fading into the stillness that settled over them like a curtain falling on the first act of a play. The shopkeeper straightened, his voice louder now, as if volume could make his authority real. "You think you can just walk in here and tell me how to run my store?" Maya met his raised tone with calm precision. "I don't need to tell you," she replied. "The way you treat me already says everything about you." His jaw flexed, a muscle twitching near his temple. "I'm protecting my business," he insisted. "From what?" Maya asked, tilting her head slightly. "From change? From equality?" He flinched but masked it quickly, grabbing a rag to wipe the already clean counter. Outside, the light was fading, the golden warmth replaced by the cooler blues of early evening. The store felt smaller now, the walls pressing in with the weight of their standoff. Maya didn't break eye contact. She knew the tighter he held to his false sense of control, the easier it would be to pull it away from him. The shopkeeper tossed the rag aside and leaned forward. "You don't belong here," he said. The words were sharper now, meant to cut. Maya's expression didn't shift. "Funny," she said. "I could say the same to you." The tension between them thickened like smoke, heavy and suffocating. In the corner the old clock ticked louder than before, its sound punctuating each breath. The shopkeeper's eyes flickered toward the front door as though imagining her walking out, but she stood rooted, her presence an anchor he couldn't move. "You're wasting your time," he said. "Am I?" she asked, letting the question linger long enough to force his discomfort. Outside, a neon sign across the street buzzed to life, its flicker seeping faintly into the store's shadows. The shopkeeper's voice dropped, quieter but heavier. "You people are always looking for trouble." Maya took a step forward, closing the space between them. "Trouble," she said, her tone sharp but controlled. "Standing up for myself isn't trouble, it's survival." His fingers tapped an uneven rhythm against the counter, betraying his agitation. Maya could feel the shift. He was no longer just resisting her, he was defending himself against the mirror she held up. "Maybe you should think about why you're so afraid," she said. Outside, the deepening dusk painted the glass in shades of indigo, the reflections of passing cars smearing across the window, like moving brushstrokes. The hum of the fluorescent lights seemed louder now, mingling with the sound of Maya's steady breathing. The shopkeeper looked like a man trapped in a shrinking room. "You think talking will change anything?" he asked. Maya gave a small, measured smile. "No, but action will." His brow furrowed, confusion threading into his hostility. "What kind of action?" he asked, but she didn't answer. Instead, she turned slightly, letting her gaze wander over the store as though inspecting it. The shelves, the counter, the faded walls. She took it all in with the quiet authority of someone who already owned the space in her mind. His eyes followed her every move, suspicion brewing. Maya stepped closer to the counter until only inches separated them. Her voice was calm but layered with meaning. "This place is going to be different soon." The shopkeeper tried to chuckle, but it came out brittle. "Not a chance." Maya's gaze locked onto his. "We'll see." The stillness that followed was electric, both of them holding their ground. Outside, the last light of day faded completely, leaving the store bathed in a mix of artificial yellow and faint blue from the street lamps. It was a strange, in-between glow, the kind that felt like the moment before a storm breaks. In her mind, Maya knew this was only the beginning. Maya glanced toward the dusty back office door, her eyes narrowing slightly. The shopkeeper followed her gaze, a flicker of unease crossing his face. "That's employees only," he said quickly. She smirked faintly. "I know." His brows knit together, but she didn't explain. Instead, she stepped away from the counter and toward a display of old photographs near the door. The frames were mismatched, their glass smudged, but one photo caught her attention, a black and white image of the store decades ago, a man standing proudly out front. Maya's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. The shopkeeper noticed and frowned. "You don't need to be looking at those," he muttered. She turned her head slightly. "Maybe I do." Outside, a cold wind rattled the window, the first sign that the weather, and something else, was shifting. Her fingers traced the edge of the photo's frame, the faint creak of old wood under her touch. "You ever think about the history of this place?" she asked. The shopkeeper scoffed. "I live it every day." She tilted her head. "Do you? Or do you just repeat it?" He bristled, but said nothing. Maya's eyes lingered on the man in the photograph, tall, confident, with a knowing smile. Her mind flashed with the memory of her grandmother telling stories about him, about how he built this store from nothing before it was taken from him. She took a slow breath, feeling the weight of that history pressing against her chest. This wasn't just a confrontation anymore. It was a reclamation. The shopkeeper's voice broke the moment. "That's my grandfather in that picture," he said with a hint of pride. Maya turned toward him, her expression calm but edged. "And that's my great-grandfather standing beside him." His eyes widened slightly before narrowing again. "What are you talking about?" She stepped closer to the counter, her movements deliberate. "You think I'm a stranger here, but my family helped build this store before yours claimed it." The fluorescent light above them buzzed as if punctuating her words. The shopkeeper's smirk faltered, replaced by a wary stillness. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying with it the sound of distant thunder. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The shopkeeper's eyes darted toward the office door again, his knuckles tightening on the counter's edge. "That's a nice story," he muttered. Maya's lips curved in a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's not a story, it's fact." She straightened her posture, her presence filling the space between them. "I didn't just come here to shop. I came here to take back what's mine." His face paled slightly, though his voice stayed hard. "You're out of your mind." She let the insult pass without a blink. "We'll see who's out of their mind when the papers are signed." The clock ticked in the background, each second sharper than the last. Maya stepped back slightly, her eyes never leaving his. "Tomorrow morning, this place changes hands." His mouth opened as if to respond, but no words came. She reached into her bag and pulled out a sealed envelope, setting it gently on the counter. "You'll find the details in there," she said, her voice steady. The shopkeeper stared at the envelope, as though it might burn him. Outside, the wind howled louder, the first drops of rain tapping against the window. Inside, the air felt charged, every object in the store holding its breath. Maya turned toward the door, her steps slow, deliberate, like the drum beats before a war begins. The rain outside quickened, pattering against the glass in uneven rhythms. The shopkeeper tore open the envelope, his hands trembling slightly despite his attempt to look composed. Inside were legal documents, stamped and signed. His eyes scanned the first page, and the color drained from his face. This can't be real," he stammered. Maya's voice was calm, almost gentle. "It's real. As of tomorrow morning, the deed is in my name." The fluorescent light overhead flickered once, casting them both in momentary shadow. He looked up at her, disbelief and anger warring on his face. "You tricked me," he said. Maya shook her head slowly. "No, you ignored me. There's a difference." The storm outside cracked with a low roll of thunder, the sound vibrating through the floorboards. He dropped the papers onto the counter, as though they were burning his skin. "You think you can just walk in here and take everything I've worked for?" His voice cracked on the last word. Maya stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "This isn't about taking. This is about returning. My family built this store long before yours claimed it." Her words carried the weight of generations, heavy and undeniable. The shopkeeper's lips pressed into a thin line, but his eyes betrayed the truth. He knew what she said was possible, even likely. The air in the store seemed thicker now, the hum of the lights barely masking the sound of the rain. "You're lying," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maya placed her hand on the counter, the papers between them like a silent judge. "Everything is in order. Check the county records if you want." She leaned in slightly, her voice dropping lower. "But deep down you already know this was never truly yours." His breath quickened, and he glanced toward the back office door, as if searching for some last line of defense. The storm outside intensified, a flash of lightning illuminating the room for a split second. In that light, Maya looked like a force he couldn't contain, steady, unshakable, and inevitable. The shopkeeper's shoulders slumped slightly, the fight in him beginning to erode under the weight of reality. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice quieter now. Maya straightened, her presence filling the space between them. "I want you to understand that this store is for everyone, not just the people you approve of." He looked away, his jaw tightening again. "That's not how things work here," he muttered. Maya took a step back, her gaze sweeping over the store one last time. "It will be," she said. The rain outside eased for a moment, leaving only the low hum of the lights and the steady tick of the clock. Maya turned toward the door, her hand brushing against the worn wood of the counter as she passed. She paused just long enough to look back at him. "Tomorrow, you can either be part of the change or be left behind. Your choice." Her voice was steady, final. The shopkeeper didn't reply. His gaze dropped to the papers once more, the rain's rhythm filling the silence between them. Outside, the street glistened under the street lamps, the storm beginning to pass. Inside, the air felt different, lighter for her, heavier for him. Maya stepped out into the night, the door's bell chiming softly behind her, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another. Morning broke with a soft golden light spilling over the quiet main street. The storm had passed, leaving puddles that mirrored the pale sky. Inside the store, the closed sign hung for the last time under the shopkeeper's authority. He stood behind the counter, not with pride, but with resignation. Maya entered, her steps measured, her gaze taking in every corner of the place she now owned. She set a folder on the counter. "Today's inventory list," she said evenly. The shopkeeper glanced at it without moving his hands. "So, I work for you now," he said flatly. Maya nodded once. "Yes. And we start with some changes." Her voice was steady, not vengeful, but firm enough to make clear there would be no turning back. Maya walked down the aisle, her fingers brushing over the products as if taking stock of not just the items, but the space itself. "First, we serve everyone. No exceptions," she said, her voice carrying to the counter. The shopkeeper muttered something under his breath, but she ignored it. "Second, we're cleaning up this place, inside and out." She stopped at a shelf of dusty jars, lifting one and examining the label. "If it's expired, it goes." She set it back down with quiet precision. The shopkeeper's eyes followed her, a mix of bitterness and curiosity flickering across his face. Outside, the street was waking up, footsteps and voices drifting in. At the counter, Maya handed him a broom. "We'll start with the floors." His mouth twitched as if he wanted to protest, but her look left no room for argument. He took it slowly, gripping the handle like it was heavier than it should be. As he began to sweep, Maya unlocked the front door, flipping the sign to open. The first customer of the day stepped in, an elderly black woman carrying a shopping list. She smiled at Maya and hesitated at the sight of the shopkeeper. Maya gestured warmly toward the aisles. "Welcome," she said. The shopkeeper kept sweeping, his eyes lowered. It was a small but undeniable shift in power. The store began to fill slowly. A young father with his toddler, a pair of construction workers on their break, a group of high school students laughing as they browsed the snack aisle. Maya moved between them with ease, answering questions and greeting each person. The shopkeeper stayed behind the counter now, scanning purchases without speaking much. Each customer handed their money to him, some with wary looks, others with quiet satisfaction. Maya caught his eye once, and held it for a second before turning away. The message was clear. This was how it would be from now on. By midday, the store felt transformed. The air was lighter, filled with the sound of conversation and the faint scent of fresh bread from a new delivery. Maya stood near the counter, watching as the shopkeeper handed change to a customer without hesitation. She knew it would take time. Habits don't break overnight, but the foundation was set. As the customer left, she stepped forward. "Good work today," she said. He gave a short nod, not ready to admit anything more. She didn't need him to. Outside, the sun was high, reflecting off the wet pavement and casting sharp, bright light into the store. It was a new day more ways than one. The late afternoon light poured into the store, casting long amber shadows that stretched across the polished wooden floor. Maya stood behind the counter now, her posture relaxed but commanding, a quiet satisfaction in her eyes. Customers moved easily through the aisles, chatting, laughing, and filling their baskets. The shopkeeper stood near the register, scanning groceries with mechanical precision. He wasn't smiling, but he wasn't glaring either. A man caught between the past he clung to and the present he now served. Maya handed a bag to a young boy, his wide grin making her smile in return. Outside, the street hummed with life, the air carrying the scent of rain fading into sunlight. The moment felt like a picture of what she'd fought for: normalcy, belonging, and a place where no one could be told they didn't belong. A bell chimed as the door opened, and an elderly black man stepped inside, leaning on a cane. He paused, his eyes sweeping the room before resting on Maya. A slow smile spread across his face, the kind that carried decades of unspoken understanding. Maya stepped around the counter to greet him. "Welcome," she said warmly. The shopkeeper glanced up, a brief shadow crossing his features before he returned to his work. The old man's voice was steady but tinged with emotion. "It's been a long time since I've walked into this store without feeling unwelcome." Maya's hand rested gently on his shoulder. "That time is over." The room felt still for a heartbeat, as if even the air was listening. The old man wandered down the aisle, running his hand over the jars and boxes, as if reacquainting himself with a place that had long been forbidden. Maya returned to the counter, her gaze following him with quiet pride. The shopkeeper kept ringing up customers, his voice low but polite, the first step toward something resembling respect. The hum of the refrigerator mixed with the soft murmur of conversation, creating a rhythm that felt new and familiar all at once. Outside, the sky deepened into shades of gold and rose, the sun lowering toward the horizon. The store felt like it belonged to everyone now. And for Maya, that was worth every step of the fight. As the last few customers left, Maya locked eyes with the shopkeeper across the counter. He didn't speak, but his gaze lingered a moment longer than usual before he turned away. It wasn't an apology, but it was an acknowledgement, and for now that was enough. She began straightening the shelves, her movements unhurried. The bell above the door jingled one final time for the day, the sound light and welcoming instead of sharp and cold. Outside, the first stars began to emerge in the twilight, their faint light spilling onto the quiet street. Inside, the store breathed a calmer air, the storm, both outside and between them, long gone. Maya stepped outside and locked the door behind her, pausing on the sidewalk. She turned to look at the store through the window. Her store. The lights glowing warmly inside against the deepening blue of night. The shopkeeper moved behind the counter, tidying up for the first time without being told. She smiled faintly, then began walking down the street, her reflection fading from the glass. In her heart, she knew this was just the beginning, but the battle had shifted in her favor. The sound of her footsteps echoed against the quiet buildings, carrying into the night like a promise kept. The town would remember this day. And so would she.